We are out here today with two vehicles, both LS's. One is an LS3 and the other is a 6-liter L96. I get the question all the time, which is a better motor? And as you guys know, every time I say better is relevant. What are you looking for? If you want decent horsepower to haul your JK and not be embarrassed on the highway, and what I mean by that is, I just went to Salt Lake from Vegas with a 3.6 Pentastar, and with 42-inch tires going up some of those hills, I was pushing 4,000 to 5,000 RPM, still getting passed by Toyota Priuses. And that's pretty embarrassing because I couldn't hold the speed limit. I probably could if I floored it, but it was a very uncomfortable feeling, so I backed off. We've done a lot of road trips with the V8, but let me tell you, we're in a V6 right now. Just wanted to give it a shot, go back to what it was, and what I can tell you is I don't miss the V8. It really becomes apparent how useful the V8 is on the highway. We're trying to hold 80 miles an hour right now. I've got the cruise control set to over 80. You can see it's speeding up, 4,500 RPM, just to go up this little grade. I've been up this grade in an LT 10 speed in 10th gear at 2,000 RPM in a Jeep that weighs about the same as this with 40s. Now, we did get to 80 miles an hour, but we're also at almost, well, 4,500 RPM. It's very unnerving. I don't have anything on like the air conditioning, and I did turn off the traction control because that might give you a little teeny bit more power in some situations. The 6-liter is going to get the job done. The 6-liter is going to let you cruise at 70, 75, 80 miles an hour if you have to, and it also has plenty of passing power. The 6-liter will actually surprise you how much power it has. Even though it's a lower compression engine and it runs the heads that aren't preferable, the 6-liter is designed for torque. GM made a combustion chamber that'll run on low-grade fuel, and when you combine the VVT and the tuning that GM has provided in the 6-liter, it has a lot of bottom-end torque. And I've actually been fooled driving 6-liters around thinking they're 6.2s, because on the bottom end, there's not much difference. In fact, up to about 4,000 RPM, there's not much difference. The 6-liter L96 is a unique engine. It is an LS engine that continued to be put in production even after 2015, when most of the other LSs were end-of-lifed. And the reason is it filled a void that GM had, and that was they didn't have an LT heavy-duty truck motor. So they kept the L96 in production year after year, right up to 2020 as far as I know. That's why the L96s are readily available now. You can purchase them new, which isn't true about a lot of the LS engines since they went out of life 5 years ago. They're getting more and more difficult to find, especially the 6.2 truck motors. They're not only readily available, but the prices are very reasonable for what you're getting. The 6-liter does have a iron block, and that iron block is very rugged. Guys ask, oh, is it 200 pounds heavier? And no, it is not 200 pounds heavier than the all-aluminum engine. Actually, going to a 6-liter does not have as much effect on your JK as putting on a steel bumper or a winch, which is well in front of the axle, and just a winch itself can weigh 80 to 100 pounds. So there really isn't a whole lot of downside there. Now, if you have a stock JK like a JKX and it has weak springs and you've already got a bumper, steel bumper and winch on it, just go ahead and put a budget boost on it, you know, a 1.5-inch budget boost, and that'll level your vehicle out. The benefit of the iron block, I think you know, is that it's stable. Whether it's in really cold temperatures, really hot temperatures, if you had to abuse an engine, not that you should abuse an engine, but let's just say you ran it low on oil, you're out in the middle of nowhere, it ran out of coolant. The L96 is probably the engine you want to do that with, because with the iron block and the way GM has it set up very conservatively, spark timing, performance enrichment, and everything else, it's an engine that is really designed to go the distance, especially in harsh environments. You know, in a 1-ton truck hauling glass up a hill on a hot day with an operator who probably doesn't maintain it and keeps his foot in it a lot, so it has a high duty cycle, meaning it's putting a lot of power out a lot of the time, versus a 1/2-ton truck that is probably not going to tow as heavy of a load and is not floored as often. The L96 is the engine that you want. That's why the L96 has made such a great expedition engine. A lot of guys have 7,000-8,000 pound JKs with L96s, and while they're not rockets, they get you where you want to go, and they get you where you want to go economically and with plenty of power. You're not really suffering a whole lot with the L96. Now, if you're on 42s towing a trailer in Colorado over the Eisenhower Pass, of course there probably are better options, but the L96 is still going to get you over that pass in style. Nothing like the V6. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. The L96 will do a great job. So low cost, the use of regular fuel, as durable as you can get. The engine's been around for over a decade, and it has its roots in the Gen 3 LQ motors like the LQ4 and the LQ9, so it has a long history of pushing heavy-duty trucks. Now, if we move up to the LS3, you probably know that the LS3 ruled the racing world for a lot of years, and there's a good reason for that. The LS3 is a performance engine, higher compression, all aluminum construction. It's got some beefed up components internally. Out of the box, it's probably rated at about 430 horsepower. Don't go for the 480 or the 525 horse, whatever they are, in my opinion. The cam kind of ruins it. Yeah, it gives you more horsepower, but you lose bottom end drivability, and especially if you wheel a lot, you want to have that control. Not only myself, but my competitors have figured this out, and you really want to get the 430 horse if horsepower isn't the biggest consideration. The LS3 has been used as a track motor, whether it's round track, dirt track, Baja, you name it. It's been out there, and there's so many variations of it, whether it's the LS7, the LS2, but the LS3 has kind of been the engine that GM has offered through GM Performance for so many years, and it's one of the reasons the LS3 has not gone out of production. They put it on a secondary assembly line, from what I understand. The prices are creeping up versus the LTs now, because the LTs are in full production and the cost is being driven down. But the LS3 is still a popular engine. It's a simple engine. It's an engine that's been supported for a lot of years by hot rodders. It's a clean engine. There is no high technology. There is no variable valve timing. There is no direct injection. It's just a simple engine. You can basically say it's a 1955 small block Chevy in a modern version. So what are the benefits of the LS3? Well, horsepower. You get about 430 horsepower, but with our tune or pretty much anybody else's mild tune, you're pushing 450 horsepower. Excellent drivability. It's an engine that will idle at 600 RPM and still wind up to well past 6,000 RPM and have power. Most of the truck engines, the LS truck engines, end of the world is about 6,000 RPM. Can you rev them higher? Yeah, but you got a chance of crunching the AFM lifters if you have those, and the intakes pretty much top out there, so you're not going to really get much more performance. Now, you can take an L9H or an L94, and of course you can mod it and get similar performance to the LS3. The L99 is the automatic version of the LS3. Let's not forget that the LS3 was intended for manual transmission vehicles, where the L99 counterpart, like the L94 truck engine, has VVT and active fuel management. And they're designed for a little more bottom end torque, maybe a little bit milder of an engine. I like them all. They're all excellent engines. But if you want to pimp it out and get top horsepower, you want an L9H, an L92, or an LS3. And pretty much forget about the L92. It's a great motor, but it's an 0708 engine, which is difficult to support, or more difficult to support in tune. Plus, GM didn't really have the operating systems wired at that point. So I would stick with the 10 and up L94, L99, L9H, and LS3. They're all excellent engines, with the LS3 being top of the line for horsepower. So it's easy to mod an LS3 and get 475 horsepower. It's also easy to mod a 6.0 and get 380 horsepower, and that's about what our engines put out with our tune. From the factory, most of the 6 liters were putting out somewhere between 330 and 350 horsepower, maybe 360, because GM, again, was very conservative. The performance enrichment was very aggressive. The spark timing was very conservative. And just by putting a half-ton tune in a 6-liter, really wakes it up. And like I said, you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference off the line between a 6-liter and a 6.2. Now, when you get to the higher revs, let's say 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, the 6-liter starts to lose power. Of course, the cam phases, you get a little burst of energy there, but it doesn't have the high compression, the heads, or the cam of the LS3. So about 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, the LS3 is still pulling pretty hard, right past 6,000 RPM. So in a quarter-mile drag race, the LS3 is going to win every time. Now, in the aftermarket, guys, of course, are changing heads and cams and everything in the 6 liters and getting 400 plus horsepower. In fact, I just did a couple of 6 liters with cams and heads, and they ran great. However, I would say the bottom end was a little bit soft compared to an LS3. The LS3 ran a little bit harder on the bottom. Top ends were probably pretty similar. but they cost more. By the time you get a 6-liter and cam it and maybe put heads on it and all the labor involved, you might as well just buy yourself an LS3 and not have that compromise in drivability in the bottom end, in my opinion. So what we have here is 2 engines that really fit a lot of needs. We all know that the 5.3 LS is a great engine, but it doesn't perform as well in the heavier JKs like the 5.3 LT. It's a great engine in lighter JKs with 35-inch or smaller tires, but if you're going to be towing or pushing 40-inch tires, you'd probably be better off with a 6.0. The 6-liter, which is available at a lower cost, runs on regular gas, is durable as can be with an iron block. Then the LS3, all aluminum engine, prefers premium gas, has about 450 horsepower, and will make your JK move more like a muscle car, like maybe a Camaro SS. Take your choice. I don't think you can go wrong with either engine. They both just serve different purposes. And that's pretty much what we've come down to now with the LS swaps, because most of the other engines are getting long in the tooth, getting hard to find used, and most of them aren't in production anymore. But the L96 and the LS3 pretty much are. So we're going to have both of these JKs up on the mountain, and we will see you in the next video.